New year, new you.
Happy New Year. Hootenanny.
Hootenanny.
I think we probably did that in one of the best of shows as well.
Yeah, the best of TV and or film of 2023. We will have said that. Probably quite a few times.
And probably previous years as well.
Have you got a New Year's resolution?
No, I'm not 12.
Well, adults can have a New Year's resolution too. Although I've noticed that people are now sort of going away from the idea of the resolution as in like a punitive... Oh, I never can get this word right. A punitive thing.
Punitive.
Thank you. A punitive thing that you sort of like force yourself to do, like, oh, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to run a marathon, or, you know, you're like taking something away from yourself. People have moved away from that this year, I'm feeling, and gone into like more of these things and less of these things. So like more chocolate, less worrying about eating the chocolate.
I mean, I need to lose weight, but that's not that's nothing around this new year. That's been pretty much for the past 20 years. And I've just had a lambuna, and I've got a birthday cake muffin in the kitchen waiting for me afterwards.
And is it your birthday, Mark?
It is not.
When is your birthday?
It's July. You bought me it.
I know.
So,
it's the thing of when you're wandering around the supermarket and you know that you want to get your beloved a sweet treat, and there are no donuts or cookies or other things in that aisle. And then I was just looking around and I thought, what's this thing? And it was like a little box with like cardboard at the top, like little...
A handle.
That's
is that the word you're looking for?
Yeah, also helping me out with all the words tonight. So punitive and handle. So yeah, I had this little cardboard handle, like a little present. And I was like, what's in that? And it's a birthday cake muffin. And it was only £1. And I thought, that would be lovely to like deliver to you, like in my hand. I could like present it to you as like something special.
It's a muffin, but yeah, it looks beautiful.
Thanks for that.
I appreciate
Romance
your
is dead.
effort. I appreciate the effort. But yeah, diet starts on Monday.
What, after the Buddha?
Yeah.
Watching television.
So for TV, I've got something that you haven't watched, and then we've got a show that we've both been very much into.
Obsessed with, taking up every waking hour. Do you want to do yours first?
Yeah, let me get mine out of the way. So my show is called Men Up. It was shown on the BBC in that funny time between Christmas and New Year.
The Merineum.
That's it, the Merineum, the in-between times.
Yes.
I can't remember if it was, and I'm this is why I'm second guessing myself. I can't remember if it was like just before Christmas or just after, but it was definitely in that slot that I think
footballer commentators say in and around.
In and around. Thank
Christmas.
you. In and around Christmas. But it's a zone for television where things kind of like go to die, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, the EastEnders Christmas special, just no one... I don't think it is. I think things can get lost in the shuffle. I think it's safe to say.
Well, I feel this has, and I think that's a real shame, actually. Men Up is a drama, and there are comedy elements to it, but a drama around a medical trial that took place in the early to mid 1990s in Swansea for what then became known as Viagra. So It's a group of men, and they're a diverse range of men, actually some really interesting actors. So you've got Faldat Sharma, you've got Ewan Ryan, who you'll know from Game of Thrones.
I know from...
The baddie from Game of Thrones.
I know that he later played the exact same character in... What was those Marvel People on the Moon?
Oh, yeah, I think I'd lost Marvel by that point in
Ansel
time.
Elgort can't speak.
Oh, you've lost me now. I'm thinking of like the
Inhumans.
Oh, Inhumans, that's it. Yes.
Yes,
was that a TV show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the cinema to see it in IMAX.
That's why I'm getting confused.
The first episode. That was a waste of fucking 10 quid.
Anyway, Ewan Ryan's in it. It's very good. You've got the likes of Mark Lewis-Jones, who's sort of a stalwart. You've got Paul Rees again. These are all characters you probably don't know by name, but you would know of them. They're very good character actors. And then names that you will know, like Alexandra Roach, who's from Utopia, and Joanna Page, who we recently saw when we rewatched. I nearly said Notting Hill. It's not Notting Hill. Love Actually at Christmas time.
Yes.
So a lovely cast of Welsh actors, including Katie Wicks, who's in it for a sort of a comedic scene at the beginning.
I'm just looking, and yes, I didn't realise she was from Wales.
Yeah, so like really lovely bunch of actors, and I think when I watched the trailer for this, it really set itself up as sort of like a full Monty, because clearly the idea of a group of men, all different ages, from lots of different backgrounds, going to take a drug which may or may not give them an erection, there is a comedy element to that. And there was sort of like a scene of them all in a car, or almost like reacting to music, and it just felt a little bit full Monty. And I thought, I'm interested in, because it's a true story, I'm interested in what happened with this medical trial, but I'm also interested in just seeing how this drama is sort of like comes about because of the actors that are involved.
Yeah.
But interestingly, when I watched it, yes, like I say, there's comedic moments, but there's a huge amount of heart in this, and there's a lot of emotion. It really brings to life the complicated psychological effects of erectile dysfunction in some men who are only in sort of like their early 40s, some men a little bit older, some people who have lost their wives, some people who've had, really difficult relationships with their partners, with gay men. It really brought home how hard that is. And there's a scene in one of the episodes where they're talking about why it's important to even have this trial, because no one was looking at this, no one was trying to help those men. One of the characters talks about the suicide rates and saying this is like a silent stigma, but also he says very clearly, men are dying of this, but we're not knowing that they are. And
in the 1990s, that wouldn't be at the forefront of the conversation around mental health, I dare say.
Absolutely. So yes, some fun moments, because we're talking about sex and we're talking about these things. So some funny moments, some comedic moments, but so much heart in it, so much emotion. Some scenes that really, really made me cry. And it's not. I found this really, really interesting. It wasn't all about, here are some men who want to have sex with their partners. It was also about the relationships behind those marriages and partnerships, and a lot of the sort of the takeaway was it wasn't really about the sex. It was about who they were as people and how communicating with each other. And I just found that so refreshing. It didn't no one was talking about it, apart from there was a 5-star review in The Guardian which said it was a masterpiece, and I completely agreed with it. And then I thought there'd be more talk around it, or like the podcasts would be talking about, or there'd be reviews of it, or saying this is the show of the year, one of the making it into people's top 10s or whatever. But I don't know whether it's so far at the end of the year.
Yeah, it arrived too late.
And so I really wanted to talk about it because it's still on iPlayer. You can. I absolutely just took one episode after another because I wanted to see what happened to these characters, and it felt real. The interesting thing about it is when I started to look at the production team, Russell T Davies is one of the producers, and I really felt it had an It's a Sin. It's difficult because It's a Sin's so much on a pedestal, isn't it? And we know that's an astonishing piece of television. It's not right next to It's a Sin, but it's certainly floating nicely beneath it, and it has a lot of the same emotive content that I really, really enjoyed, and the way that it told the story, I thought it was just beautifully told around again an area of stigma.
Okay.
So I'd really recommend it. I think you as a man would really enjoy it as well. I think you'd enjoy seeing a program that was about men, all different kinds of men, which talks about masculinity, talks about what it is to be a man. I think that's really refreshing, and you see them together talking about mental health.
Yeah, okay. Well, I need something to watch. I said this about most things that you recommend, and I never really end up watching it. But yeah, it's something I need something to watch, so that I might pop it on. Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about something that we have both seen, and as we have already alluded to, we're a little bit obsessed by.
The Traitors. So, can we talk about our history with The Traitors?
I think we might have to.
Because the first series of The Traitors came on at the same time as the World Cup last year. So when a game was on the BBC, at half-time, you quite often saw Claudia Winkleman come on with some hooded figures behind her.
It's all very
and we said, that looks shit, doesn't it?
Mm.
And there was loads of people saying how amazing this show was. But I think by this point, we were pot committed and it was a lot to get back. It would have been a lot to get back into it there, so we just carried on. But the new series came out a couple of weeks ago. I said I wanted to watch it. You said you weren't interested, but you're a bit snobby, to be honest.
Yeah, I was. I've said this to you off mic, but I was a bit of a dickhead because I just said I'm not watching that. I'm not, and the reason I wasn't watching it, and this is absolutely a personality flaw of mine, and I put my hands in the air when people go on about a show and they say like it's the best thing ever and it becomes a sort of thing that everyone's watching, I automatically don't want to watch it. We can have long, dark, deep psychological analysis of that, but it is a problem that I have. So
I know.
What I said to you was that you could watch it because
that was nice
so
of
generous. You could watch it, but I would sit with my laptop open, probably with a face on, and I wouldn't really be watching it. I would be working on something, but you could watch it. And naturally, open my laptop, within probably 2 minutes, the screen sort of came down slowly, and then the laptop was put on another sofa.
I feel like it was that trope that's in a lot of films, like most memorably, like for us once, where someone's like a bit snobbish, and then all of a sudden you see that moment where it catches them. And I think there's a sound engineer in Once, which when they're recording, they're starting to play When Your Mind's Made Up or something like that, and he's like on his phone and like tapping away or something like you see his like eyes just go, and then he
What's
starts
this beautiful music coming from these people who I didn't think anything of.
That's exactly what you did.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I'm really sorry. It's brilliant. I mean, everyone who's been talking about how brilliant it is, you're totally right. It is absolutely superb.
Let's do a quick elevator pitch of the format. There's 22,
wish I'd come up with it.
Yeah. There's 22 people in a castle in Scotland. We now know through millions of clickbait articles that don't actually sleep there, but they're in there during the day. There is £120,000 they can win, and each day they get a little task that they have to do where they can win 10, 15, £20,000, and they all have to work together for that. And each night they vote someone off.
The traitors.
Well, no, they don't vote the traitors off.
You're right.
No.
No.
Let me explain it in the format that
I thought you'd missed a bit.
Each night someone's voted off.
Banished.
Yes, that's the term that they use. And at the end, people split the money between them, whoever's left. So a bit like Big Brother. The wild card to this is a number of people are randomly picked to become traitors. No one knows who they are. We know who they are, but no one else in the house knows who they are. And they are a secret clan of people who need to work to make sure they're there at the end. Because if any of them are there at the end, they get the money rather than it being split amongst everyone else. So they get to vote someone off every night, murder them, as it's known. And the plan for the faithful, the people who aren't traitors, is to eliminate the traitors so they get the money to spread around amongst them. I mean, it's a genius reality TV concept because we know who the traitors are, so we can see the psychological battles that they're playing. They can't just vote out their least favourite people on there because everyone will say, oh, well, it was him that you were arguing with him yesterday. You're clearly a traitor. Then we'll get you out the next night. Such a clever show.
And one of the best things that we really enjoy sitting together on the sofa, like shouting at the telly, is that the faithful, and remember there's a lot of them compared to the traitors where there's like 3 or 4. Yeah. The faithful are just really rubbish at finding these traitors. And they do these, like, they'll say things like, oh, you're very quiet. It's like, yeah, they're just being quiet. And then they'll go for someone who's a loud character. Instead, they contradict themselves all the time. Or they'll say things like, you've changed. I'm sorry, I think you've just changed. On day one, before they even knew before the traitors were even picked, on day one, when we were on a train coming to the castle, when we were all in the same boat.
When we'd never met anyone.
And we didn't know, and everyone's doing that first day thing where you meet a group of people that you've never met before. You were really, really like bouncy and sparky, and now you're just not. And it's like, oh my God. The people, I know there'll be academics out there who are watching this for group dynamics and sort of an analysis of how people work when you throw 22 people who don't know each other together. It is fascinating. And the groupthink that's going on, once one person says, oh, I think it's David, then the next person, oh, I think it's you, David. And then it goes on because no one wants to put themselves up as saying it's someone else.
Yeah. It's amazing. There is a mustache twirling villain in this who is an absolute anti-hero called Paul, who I suspect his time on the show is not long left because, I mean, the game was structured in a way where there were questions to be asked about whether he was a traitor or not. And then someone turned around and said, well, I don't quite understand how you've managed to come back from this because you were voted the most popular, but yet you've not been voted out.
Yeah, the traitors would have totally got rid of you.
And no one's picked up on this, apart from one guy called Jazz.
Jazz is a hero.
Yeah.
Jazz absolutely knows. And actually, when you hear Jazz's backstory and that he's had that sort of experience in the past, I think he can pick up on sociopaths and narcissists. And that's what he's doing. But no one else will go with him.
No.
So poor Jazz is on his own, picking up all these clues, having things said to him that are so obvious. And he's saying, well, I've got to keep it in my back pocket. Because if I start saying, oh, it's you all the time, no one else is with me, you're going to get rid of me.
I mean, there is one of the all-time great breakdowns on TV over... So there was a task where they had to guess... There was a vote amongst the 22 people, and there was a thing of who's the biggest sheep of the group. I've seen people have major losses in their life take it better than Brian took being voted the sheep of the group. He went into the round table, which is this lavish set where they decide who they're going to vote out, and just decided to make it about him and say, "Look, can I just work out why people have called me a sheep and why have you voted for me? Because I don't feel like I'm like that." It's like, why are you talking about this now? We've moved on. He coined the phrase, "Look, I don't know whether you think I am or I amn't," and just completely forgot the English language.
Can I just check before we vote? Can I just see if someone thinks I am or I amn't? And it's so fun. And bless him, he seems such a lovely guy. But I think that really indicates the pressure. What we haven't spoken about is this moves really, really quickly. So every single day, someone is banished and someone is murdered. Every single day. In their world, they do a task. They do one of these group building, awful team building tasks, which is, I agree. And that's where they're collecting the money. It's starting to do a little bit more within the show, I think, because there are some people who aren't pulling their weight within the group tasks.
Yeah.
And that's starting to come to the attention of other people. So it's not really about murdering people or banishing people. They're starting to go, you know what, I'm a bit sick of this person who always stands at the side and doesn't get involved. So again, it's that group dynamics thing where it's not really part of the show. It's just when you're living with people for a period of time, you get to start liking some people more than others, or starting to see personality traits that it's like when you're working with people, when you're at work, you'll know there's someone who does something that you kind of like, oh, I wish you wouldn't do that.
I love all my co-workers.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. I'm not saying it's us, but in any sort of work environment, when you're thrown in with people that you don't know very well, or you have to work with very closely, there will be some people who work in a very different way to you, and that will be challenging.
Yes.
And that's what's starting to come out in the show, I think, because at the beginning, everyone's just a bit nicey and trying to get on. And now some people are going, you know what, I can't be bothered with collecting this money.
Yeah. So, highest recommendation from us.
Absolutely.
It's appointment TV. It's not something we save till next night. Mm-hmm. We sit there. It's 9:00. It finished at 10. It's on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights. These are times where we might just decide to go and read in bed or something like that. And I say read, what I mean is play with my phone, then drift off to sleep.
Absolutely.
But this is something we need to watch live. As soon as it finishes, I'm getting texts from people like, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it yet? And then criticising them all for ignoring Paul in his top hat and
twirly tash.
Yes, the hooded claw.
Yeah.
Planning to kidnap Penelope Pitstop.
People have compared him to Nasty Nick, which I know can be one of those things that gets bandied about, but I genuinely think this is on a par with that first Big Brother series with Nasty Nick, because the level of what he's doing is so little and minuscule, and he's not doing anything wrong. He's playing a game, just like Nick was.
Nick did break the rules by sneaking a pencil in.
I know, that's what I mean.
I look forward to Paul appearing on the front page of The Sun in a shitty £1 cap that they've had screen printed with Brad Pitt.
I know, but that's what I feel like. I feel like it's that because he's been banded like, is he the biggest baddie in Britain sort of thing. But I find it quite endearing because like Nasty Nick wrote like a book about how to be a baddie, and he made his money, and we're still talking about him now, and we're still calling him Nasty Nick, which is like ridiculous.
I don't know what his last name is. I know Craig Phillips is. I know who. Yeah. I know. I don't know what the num's last name is.
And like, good on him. Like, if that's, he's gone in there to play a game. He's not ruining anyone's life. A bit like Nick didn't. And I hope that the fame and the 5 seconds of fame or all of that sort of stuff comes across, because I think these are like, for me, these are like fundamental British characters of television that we remember years down the line, that are part of our culture. So I really enjoy it from that level.
It's not a British format though, is it? It's
I didn't know that.
I think it came in from like Netherlands, I think. Right. Same place as Big Brother.
Right. Oh well, there we go. That makes sense. So that's all we've got for television.
Yes.
Let's get on to film.
Saturday night at the movies. Who cares what picture you see? When you're hugging with your baby, last row in the balcony.
So we've got 3 films, I think. I've got The Boy and the Heron and Poor Things, which I've just got back from.
And we have both got Godzilla Minus One, which I'm excited to find out your opinion on, because I still don't know, and it's been a few weeks since we've seen it.
Yes. I'm going to do The Boy and the Heron really quickly for reasons that will become clear. The latest film by from Studio Ghibli, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, absolute legend of Japanese cinema, Japanese animation. Has made many of the most famous Japanese animations, such as Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, et al.
And even I've heard of those. And
Have
I know
you seen
nothing
any
about
of them?
animation. No. You know what? I just know instinctively they're not my cup of tea, and animation is not a point for me anyway.
Well, I've seen a lot of them, and I feel it's still not for me. So I'm going to say that up front, that yeah, this is a film I respect rather than enjoy. It's a story of a young boy who, in World War II, his mother is killed, and so he has to move to the country with his father and his father's new wife. There he meets a heron who comes out the sea and starts trashing the... Oh, no, sorry, that's my notes for Godzilla, sorry.
You know what? I did not get that. I was sitting there going, what? I was like, this sounds just like Godzilla.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Japanese World War II films recently. Yeah.
I take it the heron's nice in this.
Yes, the heron... Well, yeah,
okay.
Sort of,
right.
Yeah. But the heron leads him on a mystical adventure into other lands and other worlds. It's very whimsical. This film looks amazing. Some of the most beautiful animations, some of the sets just look like they are pieces of art that you would see in a museum. The voice cast is great. So I'm going to read out some of the people who do voices. So Christian Bale, Dave Bautista, Gemma Chan, Willem Dafoe, Mark Hamill, Robert Pattinson, Florence Pugh, Dan Stevens turns up. And they're not just doing their own voice, which is often probably Jack Black sometimes when he does a voice. There's never any doubt it's Jack Black.
He is Kung Fu Panda.
I didn't know that these were doing the voices until I saw the end credits. I saw the dubbed version
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
you must have seen the dub version rather than the
That-
subtitle that just clicked.
I didn't even realise it was those people. Yeah, they speak really fluent Japanese. Yeah, no. Yeah, I saw the dub version just purely because that's when my schedule worked and that's the times are convenient. I've got absolutely no problem with they do such a good job with the dub versions. I'm normally a bit of a snob with something like that and would rather watch the subtitles, but there we go. This just uses a story structure which I just cannot get involved with. And I think it's personal for me. I know enough people whose opinion I respect, who absolutely love these films, this will be on their top 10 of the year. Yeah, greatest films of all time. I have repeatedly tried, and I will continue to try because I'm clearly missing out on something, but this just isn't for me. The storytelling tropes just... I don't know if I'm missing something, but there's clearly some time that's passed between the boy's mother dying and him moving to the country. But that was never clear to me. I don't think there was a sign on screen that would have done that. We then find out, 20 minutes into the film, that the dad's married the mum's sister. Is that normal in Japanese culture? I don't know. But took me by surprise. And I'm surprised they're not making more of a thing about this. George R.R. Martin does kind of 3-stage reveals. There is something that's put in really subtle that 0.1% of the hardcore fans who's really paying attention will pick up on. Then he'll do another thing, and then there is a reveal for everyone else. This kind of got 1 and 2, and then turned about 4 pages, and then it was just part of the plot. And I'm like, you've never really revealed that to me properly. I suspect that that's the case, but characters just become something that I don't think it was explicitly explained to me that that's the case. And then the film just ends. There is a resolution, and I'm waiting for a little postscript, and then it just ends with, and then we move back to the city 2 years later. Oh, okay.
And nothing else?
Nope.
That was it?
Nope.
Just the end?
No post-credit sting. Tony Stark didn't turn up and say he was building the Heron CU. Yeah. No, it's...
It must be hard when there's essentially plot holes, or you're finding it hard to marry things up.
Well, I'm not sure there are plot holes.
Okay.
I think this might be me.
The way
the
way the story is told.
But there's also... I was like, have they mixed these scenes up? Because someone's talking to someone, then he's in a completely separate room, and then he's back talking to this person. It's like, am I missing something? And clearly it's on me, because these are incredibly successful. It's being so successful, and probably down to the writer's strike, that this is being shown in a big screen at our local Cineworld in the centre of Newcastle. So clearly it's me. I wish I enjoyed these more, but yeah, it feels like I'm first night at the opera, and I'm not quite sure of the storytelling methods that they use.
I think it's brave to be able to come out and say it's not that you didn't like the film. It's just that you respect the animation. It just doesn't work for you like it does for other people. I think it would be a lot easier to go along with the crowd and be like, oh, this is amazing, and everyone says it's amazing, and if I'm a cinephile, I must say how brilliant these things are. So
I'd rather burn the ground, go scorched ground, and say it's Emperor's New Clothes, and everyone's fooling themselves. But no, I'm sure that's not the case in this instance.
So a film that you went to see today, you've literally just been to see today, and as you walked out of the door, I shouted, "Do you know it's 2.5 hours?"
Which I didn't.
You didn't. Is Poor Things, which has just won a Golden Globe for, was it best film or something like that?
It's for best award that we don't pay any attention to, because they're an absolute fucking farce, I think, is the official term.
But Emma Stone's getting lots of plaudits, and it's on everyone. Lots of people are talking about it. It seems to be something that's on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Yes, so this is the latest film by Yorgos Lanthimos, previously of Killing of the Sacred Deer, The Lobster, The Favourite. Have you just seen The Favourite?
Only The Favourite, because it was historical. It was Queen Anne, and obviously it was Olivia Colman. I saw the trailer for The Lobster, and I felt wrong because I saw that there was an aspect of if you didn't do something by a certain time, you turned into an animal. And I don't know, that's a fairy story that's really I find like the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen, those stories I find terrifying, and it really reminded me of those really dark fairy tales.
Yeah, and I think that trailer was on a lot when we went to the cinema together. Remember those days?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I was really excited by this. I never got to see it, and never got to see The Lobster until recently. It's actually my least favourite of the now 4 films that I've seen. Really like Killing of the Sacred Deer, and really like The Favourite as well. But this is his latest. It stars Emma Stone, and all I knew is that this was kind of a Frankenstein story. Because I didn't know very much about it, and this reveals itself very slowly to me, so that part really worked for me. I'm going to channel a movie Robcast and just read out the IMDb.
Good idea. Why we don't do that anyway, I do not know.
Well, because gimmick infringement. And,
True.
The incredible tale about the fantastical evolution of Bella Baxter, a young woman brought back to life by the brilliant and orthodox scientist Dr. Godwin Baxter.
Willem Dafoe.
Yes, Willem Dafoe playing something of a scientist.
Yeah.
This also stars your favourite actor?
Well, one of my favourites. He's certainly my favourite to see on the screen, known in our house as the Gruffalo. He is, of course, Mark Ruffalo.
And what a joyful time he is having.
I saw that in the trailer. He seems very caddish.
Oh, he is a rake. He is an absolute cad, yes.
I would enjoy that.
Mustache twirling to rival even Paul from The Tourist.
Fantastic. The Tourists.
The Tourist, yes. The Traitors, yes. Different TV show that I've not seen. I'm going to have to just put my prejudices about this film up front.
Okay.
When we first meet Bella, and obviously this is a Frankenstein story, she is a very infantile character in an adult's body. And I found the portrayal troublesome. I think a lot of that is down to the environments we find ourselves in with people with learning disabilities, and it certainly was a little bit too on the nose as a performance for me.
So when you're talking about that, you're talking about us as our personal life.
Yes.
And the fact that our son has profound and multiple learning disabilities, and we also have a lot of people in our lives who have learning disabilities, and you found that difficult to...
And I think it's the fact that it's a very well-known actress that I know, and yeah, it was... I think there's a fine line between like an appropriate and inappropriate performance, and this was in danger of leap vaulting about 5 towns past that line.
Interesting.
And this put me on the back foot immediately. I thought, if this carries on, I'm not sure I can carry on for the 2.5 hours, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I've said there is an evolution of the character, and as mentioned, she does move on. It's a 10-minute thing, and once I was past that, it clearly didn't stick with me because I fucking love this film.
Okay.
This is such a funny film. It is, but such really thought-provoking. Obviously, with Lanthimos, when his films are so fantastical, you do have in the back of your mind, what is he trying to say? And all the way through, there is references to religion and politics, and very much female politics. Sexual freedom of females, probably throughout the 60s, is certainly plays up in this. Women's lib, feminism, it is always there in the background. And then I'm not going to do any spoilers, but there is a third act which really hits home to modern female politics and the state of the world, certainly in certain parts of the world, where the progress that I feel, I don't want to speak for women, but I feel there is, when we have had discussions, I know that there is certainly areas of the world where people feel that all the progression has been made is certainly being rolled back.
Absolutely.
And this is really, really powerfully done, but done in a subtle way that I think the people that need to understand it probably won't get it.
No, that's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an incredibly vulnerable performance from Emma Stone. Once it got beyond the problems, she spends a lot of this film with very little clothes on. There is a lot of sex scenes in this that are very not titillating. They are done, I say partial. There is certainly some comedic elements to this, but also it's quite troubling because this is someone who, at various points in the film, where you question whether she does have the agency around this, and yeah, it's funny, but it's also at times really, really meant. I think it's meant to put you on the back foot.
Which is really interesting, isn't it, that you say that? Because again, clickbaity titles are talking about this being sort of raunchy and sexy, and how I saw an article today that was like, sex is back in the cinema and everyone's going to have this sort of like sexy sex. But I mean, they mentioned Saltburn. Interesting when you think about the sex scenes in Saltburn. And this, yeah, indeed. And this, and I was like, I'm sure that's not when you've come back and like you haven't come back and gone, oh, that was a great big sexy rom. This is dark and difficult and challenging.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily played that way. There is a tongue-in-cheek all the way through this, but this might be me as a 43-year-old man. God, I'm at that age now where I need to actually think what age I am. That I'm like, I'm not sure that's right.
Yeah.
There is certainly it certainly broaches the areas of consent and age of consent and things like that. Also, to add to this film looks fucking amazing. It all appears to be practical sets as Bella goes on these journeys. She visits Lisbon, she visits Paris, and if they aren't practical sets, they're fucking good effects. It seems like they've made these sets for about 2 minutes of screen time, to the point where they're so intricate. It's like, surely it's just cheaper to fucking fly to Lisbon and just film this one scene that you need to do. It's very, very deliberately stylized so that it looks like the most elaborate set you've ever been on, and definitely not someone trying to look like Lisbon. It's someone trying to look like a set that's made to look like Lisbon. But yeah, it's absolutely stunning. There are set pieces in all across the world. It goes into poverty politics. It goes into so many different things, like the high society and low society in the world. It's incredibly political, and that's not what I expected when I set foot into the theatre. I think it's a really important film, and if this isn't on my top 10 of the year, like, it's been a hell of a year. Have you got any interest in watching this?
I have, more so now I've heard your review, actually, because I had seen, like I said, these titles where it's like, oh, Emma Stone, lots of sex scenes, Mark Ruffalo's the cad, and I was a little bit like, well, what else will there be for 2.5 hours? I'm really intrigued by this third act that you've talked about. I do have more of I'm swayed more to go. The timing always puts me off, because anything 2.5 hours,
it absolutely flew by.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
It's just more for me. It's like the time out of my day. It's really, really hard to like get that level of time out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm much more interested in going to, and if I had the opportunity to, I'm sure I would go along now.
It's one to see on the big screen, if it's all possible. It's one to concentrate on. And it's also, I mean, I will just say now, there are elements of this that I think you will find troubling. The same warning I gave you around the creator.
Which, just for everyone at home, is the visualisation of children, young children. We have had 2 premature children, Mark and I, and so sometimes the visuals around small children, it can be difficult for me in particular to handle.
Yeah, and there is a theme that is touched upon in the final act that I know you find very troublesome. Okay. As you should, because it's a horrible thing, but it's threatened rather than enacted. Okay. But yeah, you will. So if you see it, you will see what I mean.
So there'll be things that might be challenging in the film. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, highest recommendation. It's not quite 5 stars because of my troubles early on, but it's 4.5 easy.
It's fascinating to analyse, it must be, because there's so much in that. I don't even know what the plot is, but I can feel when you're talking about politics and social and the different levels of society and women's rights, like there's so much there to think about, isn't there? So yeah, I'm more intrigued to go and see it so that I can have those conversations with you, actually.
Please do.
Okay.
Please do.
Godzilla. Ooh, he's coming out of the ocean. With his boom, 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 with his big legs.
Is that your review?
Yes, it is.
What's your history with Godzilla? He says, suspecting.
Knowing that you and I have a history with Godzilla. So, 11 years ago, when I first met Mark at a film club, as you do when you meet at a film club. We went to see lots of films together, but also you, like people do at the start of a relationship, you decided that you would introduce me to films that meant something to you. And that included things like A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles film, which is really, really interesting for me to think about because I knew nothing about the Beatles other than lovely Paul McCartney in the 1980s did the Frog song involving Rupert the Bear, and that was a great one of the greatest songs ever written.
I mean, clearly it's the song that'll be remembered when Paul McCartney sadly passes away.
I will think about it. Bum 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 mania bum. Yeah, that'll be what I sing when he
Hey
goes.
Jude or Maybe I'm Amazed or anything like that.
I mean,
no.
Genuinely would prefer to hear the Frog song than Hey Jude.
Yesterday.
Yes, I think it's very tuneful. It's got a lovely melody and there's like a story to it and everything. Anyway, let's move on. So Beatles, very good. I did actually walk down the aisle to a Beatles song, which is excellent. So that obviously stayed with us. We went to see back in the day, we went to see things like Q&As with writer-directors of like local films. We went to see, do you remember we went to see that documentary about pulp? And that was sort of like screened almost like live from Sheffield, but into a cinema in Newcastle.
Yeah, there was, I think it was the premiere or something like that. It was Pulp's documentary about Sheffield. And for the half an hour beforehand, I think there was kind of like a laser on the side of a wall, like that was being streamed live, saying things like, "Hey Newcastle, thou shalt have a fishy on your little dishy," and "Hey Leeds, no one likes Leeds, it's the..." or whatever.
Yeah. And we had kind of thought we might be like seeing Pulp at some point, but that didn't happen. Anyway, it was very good. And then we also went to see Doctor Who, the 50th anniversary. That was a showing of the TV episode, the special episode.
Was that the Day of the Doctor or something like that? Yeah.
It was also the day that a Dalek sat in front of us, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember being very much out of place.
Yeah, I think we were the only people who were not wearing scarves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we went to see lots of things around that time. And including, to get back to the point, you took me to see the original Gojira from the 1950s.
Yeah, I mean, God, how to prove to your a potential new partner that you're a pretentious twat. I don't even think, I think that was an affectation that I was trying to put on you.
So?
Yeah, because
I just thought you were amazing. Like, for me, obviously it works. Yeah, I know. I've lived with you for a long time now. I genuinely thought, wow, he really knows his cinema.
So when I was at school, we used to watch the Godzilla films. My friend had two parents that were teachers. He used to leave for work quite early in the morning. So we used to converge at his house and spend like an hour or half an hour just dicking about, playing games and stuff like that before we went to school. And this would be like in the late 80s, early 90s. We realised that they were on a Friday night. So we used to tape them and then watch them like throughout the week in half an hour chunks when we all arrived at Dave's house. And like the first film, Gojira, is a brilliant piece of work. It's about Japan post World War II, that coming to terms with the atomic bombs that were dropped. The rest of those films, not necessarily in the same league, and it's very much badly dubbed and bad effects. There was quite often when you watch them back to back, you can spot an effects shot in one. So a man is thrown into like a building. Sorry, a monster is thrown into a building. Okay. A man in a suit is thrown into a building in one, and then that would turn up like in a couple of films' time.
Ah, interesting.
But I've got a lot of affection for them.
Yeah, of course.
And I tell you now, I was probably just trying to impress you with my knowledge.
Well, it really did work. It really did work. But you were nervous, weren't you? I remember you saying, sort of like after the event, maybe even at the time, saying you were a bit nervous because it's black and white, it was subtitled. I hadn't seen that. I've never really gone back in time with my films. I don't even know many of the films from the 70s. I'm really very much an 80s, 90s girl. And the classics, in inverted commas, because of the personality flaws that I've alluded to earlier, I kind of ignore them because everyone's gone on about like this is the best film of all time, so I just don't watch it.
Was your reference to Godzilla then the cartoon, the 1998 film, Or the Chewits advert.
The Chewits, of course, but also the Deeper Underground Jamiroquai song that was used for. Was that Godzilla?
Yeah,
with Matthew?
yeah. So there was 2 hit singles from Godzilla.
Oh,
Can you name the other one?
Oh no, I can't. So what? Deeper Underground? No.
So the other
was
one.
Was it like a rap?
Yeah. So it was Puff Daddy and Jimmy Page.
That's it. I wanted to do like a rap, but also guitars.
Oh, I wish you would do that.
But I can't tell you what.
Come with me.
Oh,
Yeah, use the
Yes,
yeah, use the riff from Kashmir.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Good songs.
Yeah. I mean, I did like the Chewits advert, and ever since I hear Barrow-In-Furness, all I can think of is Chewits are even chewier than Barrow-In-Furness bus depot. Cause it was about 10 years later that I've heard Barrow-In-Furness and realised that's what they were saying in the
actual
advert.
Place, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. The film.
So that's like our background, isn't it? So I've very fond memories of that.
Yes.
And the subsequent Godzilla film, like the American Godzilla films, I haven't particularly liked as much. Although I did have some really good thoughts around the Gareth Edwards Godzilla that came out. Oh God, it's probably about 10 years ago now. But it started
that was early on in our relationship too.
That new thing, and Gareth Edwards, who was director of The Creator, which we've talked about already on this podcast, seemed to come at it at a different angle. But the later ones I've not really been into. And funnily enough, before Godzilla Minus One, there was a trailer for the next in that incarnation, which is Godzilla times King Kong. Everything has to have an X in it or something.
Godzilla X King Kong.
King Kong, yeah. Which just looked awful.
No!
Yes, it did. It really did.
Is it Fallen Empire? Is that the full name?
Something like that. And it's like, I love a monster film as well. I really, really love a monster flick. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really like Gojira, because even though it was a man in a suit, like you said, I really felt I love the symbolism of the monster films. What is the threat of the day? When I was doing A-level history, we used to watch films and unpick what the film was talking about in terms of the era that it was made in. So there were lots of films that we watched where it was, of a time, but what it was really talking about was about the Vietnam War, or what it was really, it was like some of the Shakespeares that were modernised to talk about World War II, all of that sort of stuff.
You're going to say that some of Shakespeare was actually about the Vietnam War.
No, but genuinely, and obviously it wasn't, but they were utilising that story and modernising it and telling a different tale of the era in which the film was being made. So I've always really loved that. What is this film talking about in terms of what's going on in the world at that time? And that's very much what Gojira is doing in terms of the nuclear threat and post World War II. One of the reasons that I love Godzilla Minus One, getting finally to the film review, is that Godzilla Minus One does exactly the same thing, and it really feels like it's part of that universe. If I didn't know about the special effects and everything, and that clearly made it a modern film, I would have sworn this was made round about the time of the original Gojira. It has got a sheen to it that makes it feel like that part of history. And just like in Gojira, we are putting the characters and the situation and the political climate first. Yes, the monster is there. Yes, I thought the monster was absolutely terrifying in Godzilla Minus One, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, really, genuinely, I found it the most terrifying. And I think the use of the original, what's it called?
The theme.
The theme, the
theme.
really dark and almost like Hans Zimmer-esque theme really scared me as well. So you've got a scary monster, but it's the people. It felt like it was almost like documentary style. I felt like I was there post World War II, watching the characters go about, their business in the aftermath of terrible war.
Well, okay. I saw this film just after our top films of 2023 was released, And had I seen this before, this would be in my top 10 easily.
Oh, yay.
Probably in the top 2 or 3.
We're on the same page. Hooray.
I think the joys of this is to my shame, I don't have a lot of knowledge about Japan in the 40s and 50s. But this seems to be a really interesting study of how the country was at that time. To the point where I would have think I enjoyed this film even if a big lizard didn't pop out of the sea every now and again and attack people. The characters are so well drawn. The main character, Koichi, is a kamikaze pilot who has come back from the war. Obviously, not a lot of kamikaze pilots did. And just the shame that he endures from the people he meets and trying to get himself back into a country that's rebuilding itself. I think it's so well told. He meets Narika, who I really, really like. She has a story of her own. It's not how you would see it when you first meet that character. This is such a human story. It's very, very cine-literate. There's obviously references to Jaws. I mean,
at one point there's 4 men on a boat.
Yeah, it's like, Hooper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 4 rather than the 3 that's in Jaws, but you've got the scientist, which is Hooper. You've got the crusty old Captain Quint, and you can definitely see the similarities there. And they're out in the ocean. They're out in, they're on this boat in the middle of the ocean waiting for a monster.
Yeah, the other film that really reminded me of is Cloverfield.
Yes,
because
you're absolutely right.
For so much of this story, and it changes with the final act, but we are with civilians and we don't know what's happening. So just like in Cloverfield, you can be walking down the street with the characters and then you'll see the monster, but then you'll see the army attacking it.
Yeah.
That happened all the time in this. And it also allows them to do a bit of getting out of a hole, getting characters out of a hole that they're not necessarily going to get out of.
Oh, here come the military.
Yeah. Oh, well, saved us again. But,
that's a really good... that's really good, because I was trying to think of the other films that it reminded me of, and right at the beginning, I think the opening scene really reminded me of Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park.
Oh, of course,
So there's some lovely Spielbergian moments in there, which is not a criticism. I really liked the references. It didn't feel like cliched or like they were trying to rip something off. It was just some lovely nods, really.
Yeah. I think the action scenes are so well done because it's not just action for action's sake. Every single time Godzilla appears, there's a meaning for it, and it's not just because we need to end the film right now, or we need this person to die, or we need this motivation for this person. It was well planned, and it just worked. I've got a couple of issues with the very, very final stages of this. Some plot points happen which I could have done without. But this makes me want to go back and revisit all the old Godzilla films. And I mean the old ones, the shit ones as well. Because they gave me so much joy as a child.
Yeah.
And they also somehow managed to bag me a wife. So...
Yeah, how weird.
Yeah, indirectly, but yeah.
I've got 2 little criticisms before we finish, which was at times I just felt slightly baggy at times and a little bit tightening up in the editing. I did feel the length.
Okay, I didn't.
And I know, I think it's a personal thing, isn't it? I think there were times where I was like checking my watch, and not because I was bored, but because I thought maybe we've seen this before, there may be a little bit of repetition.
Okay. But
my second thing was around the characters who are women. Now there are two women in this who start off really, really strongly. Noriko, that you've talked about, and she is very full of spirit. She is really gutsy. She's talking back to other characters. She's quite wily in her way, making plans, and she very, very swiftly falls into a wifely mode, which a wifely, motherly mode, which I can see on your face what you're going to say, which will clearly be of the time.
Yeah.
Will clearly be of the time. But what I would have liked to have seen is, even though she was sort of corresponding with the role of women in that time, I would have liked to have seen some of that personality trait remain with her, because she's clearly a spirited woman, and it just felt like all of her personality was sort of drawn out of her to fulfill the role of wife mother.
I understand that.
And there's another character as well. There's a neighbour who berates our kamikaze pilot when he comes back and hasn't done the thing that a kamikaze pilot should do. And she is saying that all of her children have died, and why is he still alive and he should have died. And she was very, very forceful. And again, she fulfills the role of mother in inverted, she becomes that caring role later on. And again, I can understand that time has passed, that these might be a character development that she's able to forgive, but it would have just been nice to have seen maybe some of that spirit remain, and not so much as women as the caregivers. That's the only thing that I just, and it's a little point. It's not huge. It didn't spoil my enjoyment of the film.
I understand that. I can understand that. For me, I think it is. I didn't feel that, but I can understand how you would.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
But
minor flaws.
It's
I
not.
think
It's not going to knock like 3 stars off it or anything like that. It's just, I think it's important to say that there are tiny little things that could have been developed.
And again, like the actors' strike has really helped us here, because I don't think we'd have seen this were it not such a wide release.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's been a lot of Godzilla films which I haven't seen. I probably would have seen it eventually because it's actually gone into the IMDb top 250.
Wow.
So that's how well it's thought of. But there is such a lack of mainstream films that this is showing in big screens in our local Cineworld and Odeon and View, whereas I think traditionally it would probably be stuck in our local art house.
Absolutely.
And maybe walk for one screen on a Saturday.
And I don't think we would have known about it.
Yeah.
This has been, and the only reason I knew about it was because I listened to the film podcasts and people were raving about it. And I hadn't even known this was a film that was being made.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one of the things where I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I listened to the podcasts.
It's a proper word of mouth phenomenon, this. If you haven't seen this and you can still see it on a big screen, I'd really, really recommend you try to.
Absolutely.
I think this will benefit from the sheer scale of a cinema screen. But if you have to watch it at home, like, I don't think you'll be disappointed.
No, not at all.
This is,
but yes,
this is for me. It's the best action film of last year for me. Even better than Aquaman, which I watched a couple of days later, and I just cannot draw myself to even talk about.
Oh no! Oh, bless you. Even better than the Chewits advert.
There's less bus depots in this, or Leaning Tower of Pisa.
I forgot about that. The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
I'm going to go and watch the Chewits.
I think we're just going to have to watch it now. You know what we do have to watch, actually, before we wrap up? Gladiators has been on today, but because we are not allowed to watch anything that isn't on CBeebies when our son is around, we haven't been permitted to watch the new, improved version of Gladiators.
Do you have to sneak it in now?
Well, I really want to. But you know what I've been wanting to do most of all? Sing the theme tune. Do you feel the power of the gladiator? I've had that in my head all day. And actually, it's one of those songs where, like, it's really bombastic and it's really fun to sing in the kitchen.
Somehow I know that song is sung by someone called Muffin.
You are joking.
Which I think might be something that I just saw on the credits.
No,
I'm telling you.
It sounds like the sort of thing that you would make up.
I don't think I suspect it's not his real name.
Muff. It can't be your real. You can't be called Muff, can you?
I mean,
is that a name? Why am I thinking about? Was there there's a music producer that did like the Garbage albums, and did he have a fun? Was he called? He was called Mutt Lang.
I don't think he did the Garbage albums.
I thought he did. I thought he
You're not thinking of Butch Vig, who was the producer of Nirvana, who was in Garbage.
Right.
Mutt Lang was.
Why have I got them confused?
Was Mutt Lang married to Shania Twain?
Yes, I think this. I'm getting all of my 90s confused. But anyway,
John Edward Julius Murfin.
So he's not really called Muff.
No.
But he went professionally by Muff.
Right. So when you hear the Gladiators theme, what sort of character do you imagine singing it?
Well, I'm thinking big because I was singing it in the kitchen. I did it very like proper low and bombastic. So I'm thinking someone who probably would have been on like a stage musical and maybe like a Bryn Terfel or someone like that.
He looks like Jimmy Tarbuck.
Mark's showing me a picture. He looks like someone's kindly uncle who probably sings in the clubs.
It's Ron Dixon.
Actually, yes. Have a look at what's his surname?
Muff Murphin.
Muff Murphin, if you get the chance at home, because he is not who I thought would have sung the theme tune.
Millionaire music boss 70 chased burglar down the road naked after catching him ransacking home at 2 a.m.
Well, of course. I hope he was singing the theme tune at the time. Do you feel the power?
I mean, you don't want to mess with his mates, do you?
No, absolutely not. Get Wolf round and sort the burglar out.
Do you know where I first saw Wolf? Sorry, I think we need to end this podcast quite soon.
We were meant to end it about 10 minutes ago. Where did you first see Wolf? Was he like in a supermarket or something like that?
No, he was on the front of the game Barbarian for the Spectrum.
I don't understand what you mean.
Right, so
he was on the front of a game?
The front cover, yeah.
Right. Like drawn in picture form?
No. So
was he
there's a
dressed up
photograph of him.
Oh, right, so he was dressed up as a barbarian?
Yeah, dressed up as essentially Conan the Barbarian.
So he was like a model? He wasn't Wolf yet? Was he Wolf yet?
Oh, no. This would be like mid-80s.
Right, okay.
Right, I'm gonna have to...
So he was Barbarian, he should have been known as.
Well,
that would have been a good name.
Yeah, I mean, Barbarian was a great game. It was a great game.
Had long hair as well.
Because you could chop people's heads off.
Oh, okay.
It was like just a fighting game, standard fighting game with swords.
Like a Street Fighter, but with swords.
Well, it was more one-on-one. Yeah, so Street Fighter. That's exactly what you're describing. I mean. Yeah.
Thank you. Don't be questioning my nerd credentials.
I'm just going to type Barbarian Wolf and see what...
But honey, I really don't need to see it.
You do?
I mean, this is terrible podcasting.
Yes, it is.
In the audio form.
We'll save this for next time.
I might put it on the Instagrams. And speaking of which, you can find us on social media. We are still on Twitter. Who knows how long for? I'm not even going into it because every time I go into Twitter, I just get depressed about the state of the world. But we are still there, and you can find us at The Honeymoon Pod. You can also find us on Instagram, where we are much more active, at The Honeymoon Pod again. We may put a picture of Mark's little birthday cake, even though it's not his birthday muffin up. And Mark is still looking at pictures of Wolf as Barbarian. Now he's showing me it. Oh, I mean, wow, that's of its time. Yeah, we might put that up on... Keep an eye out on our stories, because we may be putting a picture of Wolf.
Is that Maria Lloyd that's with him?
I haven't got... I mean, honestly, you're asking me this...
Well, you know...
God. I don't know who Maria Lloyd is, Mark.
So she's married to the Rebel MC.
Oh, really? Oh, excellent.
That might be wrong.
Okay.
Barbarian, the Ultimate Warrior. Death Sword. Right, I'm just going to say gameplay, development, references.
You know I'm totally going to edit this.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Maria Whittaker, not Maria Lloyd. But it is Wolf on the front cover. Oh, no, it's Maria Whittaker, who is married to the Rebel MC. I got the name wrong.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please come back. I'm really sorry about this ending.
I'm so sorry.
He's gone off script.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.